Myself, in the last 12 years, I'm heading this big movement of renewable energy or emission-free energy from the deserts in MENA, Middle East, North Africa. So I know this region. I'm from the Netherlands myself, but I was leading this industry group, which is an international industry group with the European, African, Asian, and American companies. And actually, the purpose is to bring the region as an emission-free region, so emission-free for itself in the coming decades, but also as a motor for the world, also an exporter at the end of the day. As you know, is the big deserts like the MENA deserts alone, they get so much energy from sun and wind, and even hydro here and there, that 6% of the surface would be sufficient to power the world, just to get an idea. And that was the basis of our work that was called Desertec 12 years ago, as a movement or an idea to capture this energy. So in these years, and there's also a lot of learnings from 12 years ago where we stand. In those days, there was almost no renewable energy in the whole region. Only very few wind, almost no solar. So we started from scratch. It is a little bit the same situation as we see today with hydrogen. And in those days, renewable energy was extremely expensive. So it needed a lot of government support, and not many people believed in it. So when we started with these ideas, in many places we were ridiculed. People said, "Ah, this will never happen," or "We have oil and gas, and we do not really need these renewables." Of course, there were some countries like Morocco and some others that had this vision in the very beginning, but most of the other MENA countries were not that far. So we did a lot of studies, what we called Desertec 1.0, about how can you capture the energy, and then how can you make sure that this energy is being used in the local markets in the first place. So this is actually what we did in the last 10 years. And what we see in the last few years is that it's not only a matter of renewable electricity power, but also now molecules. Hydrogen is like the first step as an energy carrier for virtually all industries. I think all speakers before me have indicated the application of hydrogen as a basis for many other molecules and for many industries in the whole society. So that is actually what we have done. It is important always to see, if you talk about green electrons, of course you can also talk about blue. Blue is more the other way to produce hydrogen, emission-free hydrogen from natural gas, for instance, and then capture the CO2. And the green path, of course, you produce it immediately without emissions. So these green molecules, they need, first of all, the green electrons. And that's very important always to underline. So there are no green molecules without green electrons. So, and if you see the good news, like 25 to 10 years ago, when we started, 12 years ago, the price for the cost level of solar and wind was very high. Solar was something like 25 cents per kilowatt hour, and wind maybe about 10 cents. And today, as you can see in many projects in North Africa, Middle East, they are approaching or even a little bit under 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So there's a massive decline, and that changed the world dramatically. Because if the costs are very low and you don't need subsidy, then it's much easier to push a market. And what we have seen in the last, especially in the last few years, is an explosion of projects. We have a database in our industry group, which consists of 50 companies worldwide. We also monitor the project plans and the realized projects Not all of the plans will be realized. Actually, a lot of plans are never realized, but still, it shows the high interest in the world or in this region. It is on solar, thermal, solar PV, and wind. And what we will now also see more and more is hydrogen projects, and even a few storage projects like pumped storage, like we see in the UAE and in Morocco, and also, of course, some incidentally hydro plants. And it is from the power side, a lot has been done, a lot of studies connecting continents, especially with our Chinese colleagues of State Grid of China, which is one of our partners. We did a lot of studies on connecting Europe with Africa and with Asia. And a lot of these grids are being connected step by step by grid operators, by countries. But there are also very interesting projects. So I only want to to show it to you. We are now involved a little bit in a project in the private sector, a cable link between Morocco and the UK. So there's a very interesting one. It's like, I think it's more than 3,000 kilometers, and 1 to 1.8 gigawatt connectors. So this is a massive thing, and it shows how important connections of markets will be. Connections on the electrical side. And if you can do it on the electrical side, then most likely on the gas side will even be more lucrative, because gas transport is much cheaper than, emission-free gas, much cheaper than electricity. If you talk about the price level of green hydrogen, and we have heard a lot of questions about it already in this session, then it can be everything will happen with the cost of hydrogen. There's a gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, and green hydrogen in the coming time. If we get economy of scale and we get more markets and so on, then for sure this cost level will reduce. And if you look like what are the most important factors for this reduction, is first of all the electricity price. And if you recognize that the electricity side, the power side, got from 25 cents 10 years ago to 1 cent today, then you can also see that, and we are not at the end, that green hydrogen will become very, very competitive. And here you can see that depending on the full load hours and the electricity price, you see that the electricity or the hydrogen prices, what is also confirmed by Readiness in this session, it is approaching $2 per kilogram today already. And of course, also capex is very important. So lower capex, then immediately the price of hydrogen will drop further. And with the outlook that we see is that hydrogen has a lot of room to further go down in cost. Then the good news also, and it has been also highlighted by Mohammed Ghazali, that there is already gas infrastructure, natural gas. And it is very easy to mix, to inject in the first 10, 20, even 30% of hydrogen can be done easily, added to these grids, so it can be transported to the load centers. Of course, that is then in the sense of less emissions, and not as a per se a green molecule as such, but to a greener gas mix. And especially Europe is looking in this, and it will definitely be one of the wishes of the clients at the end of the day, to get cheap transport and also be able to do this quickly. So this is something we are looking into. We have heard a lot of information from the 3 speakers already. Wael gave a very good overview of what is happening in the whole market on hydrogen as such. If we look from our side, like when we started, the big first mover in those days was Morocco. And they started with the green electrons with electrical power, solar and wind. They had plans, and they showed that a country in North Africa is able to implement this. So it works. If you see now 10 years later, Morocco has like 2,000, almost 2,000 megawatt solar and almost 2,000 megawatt of wind, and also some hydro and pump storage and so on and so forth. So this is really working, and they are also, we're one of the few a couple of years ago when we talked to them and worked with them, like 𝐃𝐢𝐢 and other institutions. They are very on top of hydrogen, and they are developing their plans and the first pilots. Another mover that we see, and it helps us a lot in our industry group, is NEOM. NEOM is one of the lead partners in our industry group. As already been mentioned by the previous speakers, in Saudi Arabia, the northwest side is an area as large as Belgium, and that will be developed totally emission-free. And one of the highlights projects is a big green ammonia project, and also ammonia, especially because it's cheaper to transport. And this ammonia can be transported into the world markets. There is a market for ammonia, and then a green ammonia can be offered instead of gray. And there will definitely be emerging markets. They show already that at large scale, like it's a $5 billion project, this is possible. And it's actually what Rajit in Oman, you see the same thing as Rajit showed. Oman also goes now together with ACME into large scale. And that really makes it able to speed up things. Another interesting, not from the large side at this moment, but from trying out and first movers is, for instance, UAE with Dubai. Dubai is also the first electrolyzer being put in operation. It's a small one together with Siemens. And it is always together with international parties, with international suppliers, with international providers, but leaded or controlled and pushed by the local governments. In the UAE, these are the rulers, like we see in Morocco and in Egypt and in Oman and other countries. The governments, the rulers, and the leadership, they push this development, and that's very important. Also, Abu Dhabi has different projects and plans. Saudi Arabia, a part of NEOM, has it also across the board. Also with Aramco, we see movements and initiatives. So that not only in the area of green, but also blue. Actually, from the point of view of hydrogen, we are always talking about no emissions. So green and blue are both compliant with no emissions at the end of the day. So they are the first step in the market to bring the value chains into lower emission modes. Oman, I don't have to say a lot about, because Rajat already highlighted the Oman development. Oman is very open to hydrogen. They're very pushy, and work with international partners, with like ACME project, but also with harbors, the port with DEME in Belgium and the port of Rotterdam, and with others. Egypt is now coming very fast. They signed different projects with Siemens, but also with DEME, with ThyssenKrupp. Most of them are partners of our industry network, so we are in close interaction with these projects. And we always, what we are looking at is where are the hurdles and how can you relieve these hurdles, so to speed up this project. And Morocco, here in this list, I already highlighted. Morocco signed an MOU with Germany. so to develop the first hydrogen project, like 100 megawatt electrolyzer, and yeah, also interaction with Portugal. We see the same thing actually also with Tunisia. Yet it's very young that the German government, they have funds for countries like Tunisia to set up their plans for hydrogen. What we do as an industry group, actually, we are a market enabler. Our job is to help the market, to help governments, to help the private sector, to relieve hurdles and to show them where to go. And apart from the project database, where we show projects, what's going on and where are problems, what is also very interesting these days and very popular is the cost models for hydrogen, so the levelized cost of hydrogen from source to sink, and also of green ammonia nowadays. So we can see what are the cost components, how is for instance green hydrogen relating to blue and to green, and that is for the market very important to see what's going on, how are these developments, what is the most competitive solution under what circumstances. If you see, for instance, from this cost model, this very interesting one of the latest analysis, we found out that the green ammonia, in the cases that you can build it these days at a decent size, and I'm quite sure that Rejat can confirm that. Let me see that. That you see that green ammonia is already cheaper today than gray. That's an eye-opener, and that's just about cost analysis. So if we will see in the coming years that green ammonia will be immediately competitive in the market. So that's even if there are no costs for emissions. Then what we also did is the cooperation between Europe and North Africa. Like the European Commission and also the North African countries are talking about exchange of energy, actually to develop both the hydrogen market in North Africa and in Europe, and to connect these two. That is the famous 2 × 40 gigawatt initiative of the European Commission. Actually, we did this study. It was an initiative of DII in our MENA Hydrogen Alliance. But also another point, and it has been highlighted also before, of course, the most important is that we have not a new colonialization or something like that, but that the countries in North Africa, Middle East, that they take the lead and they also have the benefits and they create jobs. So we did a study with Roland Berger about the potential of hydrogen, like in the Gulf states, but also at the end of the day in North Africa, and the localization, like what kind of new industries, what kind of jobs will be created. And the big figure that came out is that in the coming decades, about alone in the Gulf states, 1 million jobs will be created in this whole energy transition. And then if you look at the use of hydrogen, and this question we always get, of course, like, is there a need for hydrogen? Is there demand for green hydrogen? Well, where we just start. So there is not much demand today. And there's only a demand in countries like Germany or Netherlands or Japan and some others that really have a combination of a lack of energy, or some pressure on energy as such, and a very strong pressure on emissions. These regions, like also the United States these days, and Europe and Japan and China, and even more. And since the Paris Agreement of 2015, at the end of the day, all countries in the world, almost all countries, they have promised to bring emissions down. And we see also that many countries have a 2050 emission-free targets. And that will be the big driver of green hydrogen, or maybe also blue hydrogen, is to enable the energy carriers without energy. And the MENA region will play a major role because they are one of the major green energy producers, or the potential green energy producers in the world with their big deserts. So the Europe and Asia, East Asia, will become very attractive markets. So the art will be to export hydrogen or hydrogen products, emission-free, at a low cost and with high security of supply. So yeah, like I said, if we talk about hydrogen and about the question, is the MENA ready for hydrogen? Well, in principle, they are ready. I mean, there are all countries that have shown that they can produce green electrons or green power. But it is not only the question, are they ready? But the more important question is, what are the benefits to MENA? But they should, these countries should all feel benefits, like lower or economic developments, diversification, lower cost of energy, higher security, innovations, job creations, and also zero emissions. Actually, there are a whole lot of benefits. And that's for us, for our initiative, that's in the foreground. Here you can see, and I skipped now quickly the list of all the companies that work together. It is, like I said, from different countries, also strong German companies like Siemens and ThyssenKrupp, the steel company, and ABB, and many others, but also Mazen and NEOM and Masdar and many other companies in the region. So just to close this part of my session, this Desertec idea, and we are now at the moment at the third phase, like MENA to become emission-free in a couple of decades, but also to become a leader in the world and an exporter of green energy. That MENA has demonstrated its ability to pull off the regional green energy market in the last 10 years due to lower solar and wind costs. And MENA already has about 20 gigawatts installed today, and is only at the beginning. Then we see national strategies, we see local initiatives, small-scale pilots, but also first large-scale projects, like in NEOM, like in Oman. And they are emerging in some of these leading countries. And also Europe and Japan, but very soon also others, they will be the emerging off-takers of green energy. And what is very interesting, that has to be developed further, that is the quick win that we have. We get the existing gas infrastructure can be used already for transport. Of course, at the end of the day, you also have the tankers, like LNG today. They will be transformed to hydrogen or ammonia or different molecules. Then the highlight is at the moment this combination of NEOM and aqua power and air products that they are really pushing for the largest scale facility for green ammonia, and then have a direct connection to the world markets. So Molly, that is about what I show you now, and I'm now, of course, available for questions and answers.
Paul, deep appreciation to your kind, informative address. You absolutely, you literally let me run out of my questions. All the pre-selected questions have been adequately addressed by you. So we can get straight into our audience Q&A session. And one more question from Saif to Paul. Thank you very much for the great presentation. From your perspective, in terms of priorities to achieve net zero emissions in MENA, should the renewable energy infrastructure be used for hydrogen production or as an alternative for fossil fuels in electricity generation?
Yeah, I don't know if I understand the question. And actually, I'm looking how I can see you because I don't see you at the moment. Let me see.
Yeah, you need to exit the full screen mode.
Okay, the full screen mode.
Right, and open the Q&A box. In the open column, there's two remaining questions for you. One is from Saif and one is from Said.
Yeah, well, is it the first? Is the cost of hydrogen per displayed? I have either Stefan. No, I have Stefan. Where is it? Said?
Said, just scroll down the below.
Syed Ahmed. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Could you please comment on commercial viability of blue and green ammonia versus gray ammonia? Well, I mean, blue and green ammonia are products that aim at no reduction, no emissions. And there will the question is more like, who is where's the market? What's the demand? Which industries pay what, and where are they? So at this moment, this is not yet in place. So there is first countries like Germany, for instance, is putting high emphasis on green hydrogen, but not yet on green ammonia, by the way. But if you have a customer somewhere in the world that wants to buy a green hydrogen, then they can buy green ammonia and easily get the green hydrogen out of the green ammonia. So it's a question of an emerging market in which cost and delivery costs actually, so costs including transport play a role. And as we see in the model, a green ammonia today would be cheaper than blue ammonia today, or gray ammonia today. That's an eye opener. So we expect that this market of green ammonia can take off very, very fast.
Yes, and the question I just mentioned is from Saif. The question above Said Ahmed's question. So it's about, I think it's about the combination of renewable energy plus hydrogen facility. So you think, so the Saif's questions is more like, do you think all the renewable energy infrastructure should be used for hydrogen production, or it's more like a supplement or an alternative for fossil fuels in electricity generations?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, if the purpose of all this hydrogen and green hydrogen is less emissions. And I think the first step in less emissions is the electrical side locally. So if there is local electrical demand that you can serve, as long as there is locally a lot of fossil or emissions demand, or a lot of oil and gas, then the first thing is to replace that, to substitute that before you think of producing hydrogen. Hydrogen is only an added value at the moment that the local markets are not or are emission-free enough. So that it is a local green market that then is able to export to other areas, or if there is an industrial demand locally. So in other words, the local supply and demand is the number one in first of all electrical, and if that is sufficiently covered, then hydrogen. So at this phase of the market, all the hydrogen that we see in all the pilots is just a test, is a first step in the long-term route toward emission-free energy.
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. You've been working in this sector and in this region for plenty of years, considerable years, and it was a really great presentation from you, and I think we have a lot to learn from that.